Last week I showed you how to create this dashboard, and today we are going to go look at the components in detail. So I'm going to quickly show you how I create components or how I make components when I do the design to make my rest of the design faster, or when I work with the other designers, how I collaborate with other designers to make things faster. So as you can see, we created this design simple dashboard, right? So usually I create one more frame. Maybe let's create this MacBook Pro size so that it's big enough to hold all the frames there. So we let's call it um, components. Okay, so this will be the placeholder to put all the components, no matter how many designs we create here. So we will put all the components here. So I'm going to create these first. So we have this group here, as you can see, the sidebar. So let's create this as a component first. So what you have to do is just let's first copy this sidebar and put it in the component section there. Yep, that's good. So what we have to do now is right click and make it as a component. But I want to show you something else. So I mean, not something else, I wanted to show the full step of creating, or the best way of creating, or the best practices of creating a component. Okay, so first let's change this background color to something a little more darker so that we can see our component highlighted better on that. Okay, that's fine. So here, if you notice, this is already a group, and these elements icons are also a separate group. Okay, so first I recommend you to create these icons as a component. So let's say if we have another section here called icons, a set of icons, and then you can use them as, so for that let me quickly show you. Let me copy these and then let me place it somewhere here and outside of the sidebar. As you can see here, this is inside and this is outside. So, and we create these as components. Okay, let's call it right click, create component. You can also shortcut, there's a shortcut, you can also do that. So home, it by default it's showing the name of the file name, it's already, but we can also rename it. So let's call it home, and this one is, let's right click and create quickly components, users, I keep it like that, component plus square component, and lastly settings, we create it at component. Okay, now we have a component, all these icons are created and they are now components. So let's come back to the sidebar and then let's replace this home with the component that we just created. So for that, we just go to the asset sections, and then if you go to the right click, I mean if you open that, expand it, and you can see the components are created here. So you just need to go drag and drop it to the screen where you want. So it's that simple. So I'm going to replace this icon, so you can see it's positioned at X38 and Y45, so I know that, so I'm just going to drag and drop it there. It's one way of doing. So 32 and 45, so that's fine. So I'm going to do the same for the other as well. So let's quickly replace this with the components that we just created. So just drag and drop there, users, maybe plugins, and files, last settings. Okay, and then we just align these to the top, and let's put it 32. Yes, it's fine. Okay, if you want, you can, I mean you can make it perfect, like aligning later. So let's also align this horizontally, distribute horizontally there, and let's just Okay, and last settings. Fine. Now we have made these icons as component. Next, let's make the sidebar also as a component. So just click on this. Now, as you know, in the layer, it's already a group. And if you notice in the left sidebar, I mean, you can see settings, files, and all those icons are already component. So, but this sidebar is not yet a component. So what you have to do is just right click and create as a component. Now it's turned into a blue color. So that's our component. Now let's come here and we just replace this with the component that we just created. So go back to the assets, and now you can see our new sidebar is created here. You can also search here if you have too many, and you can also switch between the list view and also the tile view. So tile view is good, so let's just drag and drop it here and then just adjust it. So there we go. Now of course I have already created this top navigation also as a component, so let's look at the sidebar only for now. So now we have this component. So what's next? So let's say your manager or someone who approves your design told you that, okay, I want to change these icons to something else. Okay, so what do you want to do now? So let's say you already created all these pages. Let's also replace this so that we can see the changes affects in screens, how fast we can apply those changes to the other screens. Okay, so now we have two screens. Let's say we have like 20 or more screens, and then suddenly the manager says, okay, you need to change that home icon. I just don't like it. So it's going back and changing everything. It's kind of hard. So what you have to do is just replace this. Okay, so for that, let's bring some icons. So right click, plugins, Iconify. I'm going to use Iconify this time. It's another plugin you can install from the Figma plugins. So let's call home and search, and you can see so many types of home there. Let's choose another home, maybe this one, just to understand. And this plugin is very cool. I really recommend to you. You can change the color, height, the flip, rotation, and everything. It's so cool. So just try it out and just click the import icon, the button, and then the icon is going to be imported. So you can see here. So I'm going to replace this icon with this one. So it's simple. You just put it next to that. So now you have two versions of icon, right? So you right click and then create it as a component. Now it's also a component, but we need to rename it so that we don't get confused with both homes, right? So let's call it something else. So I'm going to rename it to home 2. So that will be our second icon for the home. So what you have to do now is just click on this. You want to replace the entire home icons, right? Like, because 1 and 2, let's say you have so many screens. So you click on this home icon there and come back to the right side, and you can see there is a menu called instance, and under that now it's called home. So you just click on that, and now we can see all the list of components that you have created there. Also under the file that is here, you can categorize into so many types. Actually, I will show that later. So now we just need to replace with the home 2. So let's go here and then select home 2. Now you can see it switched to the home 2. Now it's a new icon. So did it apply for all the other other screens? Let's go and check. Yeah, see, it's so cool feature. It applied for the entire screen or the every screen that you have already created. So this is the cool feature that, or the powerful feature of Figma, or having using plugin in the right way. So let's put it back. It's also same simple way. Just go back and home, and that's it. It applies to all the screens. It's that simple. Okay, so let's say if you want to have more, so you just create few sets of icons and then it's that easy to replace. So let's say if you apply some color for this icon, maybe let's say this half or the half user icon to something maybe red, and you can see it applied everywhere. So no matter how many screens you have used, if you use it as a component, it will apply everywhere. So that's the best part. Let's say if this icon was not a component, then this change won't apply. I will show you quickly what I mean. Let's say you want to add a new icon here. So if that icon is not a component, then that change is not going to be applied everywhere, even if the outside layer, the group, is component. So make sure your icon is also a component and your entire group, the sidebar group, is also a component to see the full change everywhere. Okay, so I'm going to put it back to the original one. Okay, that's it. The same way, the alignment, everything, it applies everywhere in the same way. Okay, so now let's create another one that is a sidebar. Minimize the sidebar. So now this is an expanded view. Let's create a sidebar that is a minimized version. So for that, let's create one more duplicate of the same dashboard, and then let's place it here. And let's say we want a minimized version of the same sidebar. So for that, we just duplicate this, Command D, and then just duplicate it. And then we're going to remove these text, and then we're gonna change this to smaller. So when you make it smaller, you see that's going to shrink. So what you have to do is make sure you click Command and hold on to that Command key, and then you click and then drag. So that's how you make it smaller. But if you notice now, it still doesn't apply. That's because it's a component. So what you have to do is just right click and then detach. Okay, so once you detach, it's not a component anymore, but inside icons are component. Okay, we just want to detach only the outside one, and then you just click and scroll, click and drag, and you can see it's still giving that squeeze effect. So now you click the command and then click and then drag. Okay, now you can see it's not shrinking anymore, but your background is still there. That's because you have to go inside and then you have to drag and then resize it. Okay, so now we have our sidebar ready, and let's quickly apply create it as a component. So create component. Now it's a component, and let's rename it to sidebar mini. Okay, now that's our mini sidebar, and we want to put it here, right? So what do we do now? We don't want to change the alignment and everything. It's kind of because too many screens. Let's say you have like 10 screens already and you want to have a minimized version of that. So simple, like I mentioned above, you just click on the sidebar and then come to the right side in the instance and click on this drop down, and you can now see sidebar mini is listed there. Click on that. Ta-da! It's that quick. So now our new sidebar mini is there. So it's that simple to create. No matter how many screens you create and no matter how many screens you have, it applies everywhere. So the mini is there. Okay. And another thing, now I'm going to do the reverse approach. That is, now let's say you made some changes not in the master. So if you click on here, on a component in one of your screens, and you can see go to master component, and then it will go to the master component section, which is here, right? This will be the master component. But let's say you did some override changes here. You double clicked, and then let's say you change the files to something else, or let's say you change this icon color to something else here. Let's say if you can do that, let's say you change to red, and when you go back to the other screens, it's not applied. It's not applied, right? So but you still wanted this to be applied to other, not, you don't want to make a double work. I mean, going back to the master again, but you wanted to have this change affected in the master also. How do you do that? Or all the other screens? So just right click, and then under the master component, you can see another menu called push override to master. That means any override changes that you created on any other screen, it will apply to the master. So let's see. Ta-da. It applied everywhere. If you notice, see, 1, 2, 3. Of course, it didn't apply to the minimized version because this is a separate master. It's not the same master component, okay? If you see here, it's a different separate, it's a different one. It's a master component. But if you apply these changes to the, let's undo that change, the color. But if you apply that color to the icon, let's say, it applies to both. Because we shared the same icon component for both the expanded version of the sidebar, also the minimized version of the sidebar. Okay. So that's the power of the component, and that's how useful it is. So once you got used to these component and how to create component, how to use the component, how to group it, then you will save so much time and you can deliver the design so much faster. So I really recommend trying out component, and then that's it. So please feel free to ask me or comment any questions that you have. I'm happy to share anything that I know. And I will show next time how we can do the advanced animation of these components or something else related to the components. So thanks for watching. That's all for today. Bye.